Well, you know what? First and foremost, you want the building evacuated. Mm-hmm. You want everybody out of the building. Just like we did on 9/11 with the World Trade Center. Everybody and anything you can get away from the building, fine. We never anticipated those buildings to collapse, to implode. Mm-hmm. The problem is once the interior of that building heats up mm-hmm. and the structural beams start to give way, mm-hmm. You're talking 63 floors. Once a few beams go, the buildings are going to follow. Mm-hmm. And you want everything out of the area before that happens. So that's what we'd be concerned with. And the firefighters, they have an enormous team, I would imagine, fighting this blaze, but the firefighters are going to have a hard time.
Yeah, and perhaps in the earlier stages, before you see this kind of engulfment.
Yeah, so that fire broke out about 2.5 hours ago now. But as you say, the show goes on in Dubai. And thankfully, the fire, which looks so spectacular in the building, which is just very close by, the Address Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel and residential building of 63 stories, 196 rooms and 626 serviced apartments. The fire breaking out on the 20th floor about 2.5 hours ago. Thankfully, there are not as many injuries as you might expect. Let me just go through what we know at this stage. Mm-hmm. We believe there are between 14 and 16 people who have sustained minor injuries in that fire. One person described as having medium injuries, and one person we believe who had a heart attack as a result of smoke inhalation and or the moment in time and the shock of what happened in that hotel. Now, we are told by authorities that 90% of that fire is now contained within the building. So 90% of the fire contained as far as authorities are concerned. There are numerous fire teams obviously now on the spot. We're talking about 1.5 kilometers away from where you have seen one of the most spectacular firework displays anywhere in the world. And let me tell you, this firework display started at midnight. It goes on for about 9 minutes. What you will begin to see is further firework displays down towards the Burj Al Arab, which is the very iconic sail building on the beach in Dubai. And then the fireworks will go all the way along the beach. This is a long 25-minute display, and it continues on while, as you say, just really, hundreds of meters away, there is the Address Hotel, which was, until now at least, engulfed in fire. We've had a lot of eyewitnesses telling us that things were very, very well contained as the operation got underway in order to contain that fire, but clearly an incredibly frightening experience for all of those involved. Sources telling us that it may have been a curtain in a room on the 20th floor that caught on fire, and it was as a result of that that the building went up. So starting on the 20th floor. But as things stand at the moment, you see there on the left of your screen, a fire continuing to blaze, although we are told, as I say, that it is beginning to be contained. They say that they have contained now 90% of it, while on the right-hand side of your screens, as you have rightly pointed out, one of the most spectacular firework displays in the world, which will go on now for some minutes.
Oh my goodness. So 25 minutes in all, this incredible display on the right-hand side of your screen there in Dubai. Fireworks starting there at the Burj Khalifa, as Becky was just explaining, and then making its way around some of the other more remarkable skyscrapers and buildings there in Dubai. All the while, right there on the left-hand side of your screen, just about a kilometer away, is the Address Hotel still engulfed in flames. So Bernard Kerik, former NYPD LAPD commissioner joining us now. I understand you also have worked in Dubai, so you're familiar with Dubai. All this taking place when we're just less than 9 hours away from a huge display of fireworks and revelry there in New York's Times Square. So, Bernard, to hear Becky Anderson's report and to hear that possibly this fire may have started from a curtain in a room on the 20th floor, and then that fire traveled very quickly. What does your expertise tell you about how this fire may have ignited and why it would spread so quickly, within seconds, according to many eyewitnesses, engulfing this building?
Frederica, I have to say, I don't probably don't agree with that curtain thing.
Really? Why not?
No, because it just the outside of the building, it spread way too fast. I mean, within minutes, it went maybe 20 floors high. And now you have it on the inside of the building, and I know there's reports saying that, they have it contained 90%. But since they've said that, we've seen 2 major explosions. And what somebody reported as a balcony falling. My concern, looking at it from what we see off the Skype views, is that, if the interior of this building heats up to levels that the structural beams can't take, I'd be worried about an implosion, just like we had in the World Trade Center. And that's what happens. So it depends on how far the fire gets into the building. I know we're looking at pictures from the outside, but if the fire is inside the building, contained on the inside, and spreads throughout the inside of the building, and there's I don't know if that's live or not, but we're seeing another explosion on TV. That's what I'd be worried about, an implosion.
Yes, and yeah, I guess what's really extraordinary, I mean, there are a lot of things that are extraordinary about this, Bernard, but extraordinary, too, that you would have a fire of this magnitude, and the Dubai officials would say the show must go on. Millions of dollars, have been invested in this, in, more than 1.6 tons of fireworks. Last year, it broke the Guinness World Record for the largest fireworks display, and 1 million people are there to enjoy this, and so Dubai officials didn't want to disappoint. So does this speak more to the control that officials had of this fire and their containment and the confidence that they would be able to prevent this massive fire from growing or getting worse, that they could carry on with the revelry here to ring in the new year?
Well, evidently, I mean, that's a decision they have to make based on resources, and I would imagine that was thought out, for an hour or two prior to the fireworks display. My concern right now would be the groundwork that's being done around that hotel. To ensure that all those vehicles were evacuated out of there, that, obviously the building's evacuated.
In terms of a perimeter then, so what kind of perimeter are you talking about that you would feel comfortable knowing that this is a 63-story, building that takes up a pretty good size of a block? What would be a safe perimeter that would be secured, removing vehicles, et cetera? In New York City, in a New York City environment, you're talking at least 3 or 4 blocks away from that building. You want those vehicles out of there. You don't want any of that stuff to come down on them or the people around it. So, and based on what we're seeing, I hear that 90% stuff, but it just doesn't. That doesn't appear to be the case based on the visuals. And then, what defines containment then? I mean, if you hear 90% contained, what does that tell you, and why does that contrast with what you are believing?
Well, usually what you have is something that's controllable. If it was 90% contained, you wouldn't. I don't think you'd see the photos we're seeing, unless this is old stuff. But the stuff that I've seen over the last, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, as they've been saying, 90% contained, it just doesn't appear to be the case.
What do you want to see next as we're continuing to look at the pictures with the fireworks display, but when we are able to, pull up once again the, continuing burning the Address Hotel building. What kind of reassurance do you want to see? Do you want to see air support? Is this not a city or a structure that would best welcome air support? What would bring you reassurance?
You know what, Frederica, it's funny you say that, because on Arabia, the Arab networks, in the tagline, the Arab tagline, they're running a tagline that's basically saying they've called in the National Guard to assist with the hotel fire, in addition to attacking the fire by air. So I don't know if they have helicopters in the area that's going to douse it. I don't know what they're going to do, but my big concern would be worrying about the inside of that building.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that in your, based on your expertise, you would want to see a 3 to 4 block area enclosed, with this perimeter vehicles out. If this were in your jurisdiction and you were trying to battle this blaze, contain the situation, what would you want to see happen there?
Well, you know what? First and foremost, you want the building evacuated. Mm-hmm. You want everybody out of the building. Just like we did on 9/11 with the World Trade Center. Everybody and anything you can get away from the building, fine. We never anticipated those buildings to collapse, to implode. Mm-hmm. The problem is once the interior of that building heats up and the structural beams start to give way, you're talking 63 floors. Once a few beams go, the building's going to follow. And you want everything out of the area before that happens. So that's what we'd be concerned with. And the firefighters, they have an enormous team, I would imagine, fighting this blaze, but the firefighters are going to have a hard time.
Yeah, and perhaps in the earlier stages, before you see this kind of engulfment, and we've heard that the evacuations took place, what would you envision in terms of how do you clear each floor? How do you evacuate people from 63 stories with an active fire, knowing that you can't rely on elevators, using this stairway shaft? I mean, how do you suppose they went about this, especially now that we're hearing from officials that there are 14 reported injuries?
Well, listen, for a fire like this, if they only come out of this with 14 people injured, I'd say they've done extremely well in evacuating the building. They have plans and protocols in place. They do mock drills and fire drills constantly in buildings like this. In Dubai, those kind of plans are in place. We heard some of the other commenters talking about the things it's done in their buildings. This building is no different. The Burj Al Arab, which is one of the hotels that's right along the water where the display is now, they do those kind of drills there as well. So a lot of that goes into effect, a forced evacuation, and then the fire apparatus and the fire personnel get into the buildings and assist.
Mm-hmm. We've heard, Bernard, that there were sprinkler systems. We heard, reportedly that those were underway, but clearly the sprinkler systems are not putting out the fire, at least from the looks of the way the flames are traveling. So is this an instance where they have no other recourse but to just let the building burn out? Or how do you exhaust
what happens, Frederica, if they can get up in the building, from the other side and work the fire, the sprinkler system, we're only speculating based on visuals, based on what we're watching.
Yeah, because we can't see how they're extinguishing, flames, if they're even, trying to do that. We can't see it from this vantage point, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we don't know if the system worked. We don't know if the system failed. And if the system was working and is working, they have to make sure that their pumpers, that the water is getting into that system. It's not cut off anywhere by on the ground. They got to make sure the water is getting into that system to have an impact on the inside. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Bernard. I also have with us, don't go far though, because I may want to bring you back in. Kim Kalata is a CNN producer who is at the hotel. And so, Kim, describe what has been taking place from your vantage point when you have, as a backdrop, this extraordinary fireworks display that continues. Becky was saying it's all of like 25 minutes, which is quite remarkable there in Dubai.